With next-gen consoles right around the corner coming out later this year, I set a goal for myself to build a $600 PC that would destroy the PS4 and Xbox One and leave the builder with no regrets on building a PC instead of buying a console. And I succeeded. Before we start, I should note that this PC is built with an aim on upgradeability, so whenever you feel your system is subpar, you can easily upgrade it without too much hassle. Starting off, as many of you know, the Xbox One and PS4 feature 8-core processors. That just means games are going to get more and more adjusted to more cores. So instead of getting a dual-core i3, I went with a 6-core AMD FX 6300 CPU. It's got 6 cores, it's clocked at 3.5 gigahertz, it's got 32nm technology, which isn't the best, but it's okay. It can be overclocked very well, so if you feel the need to later, you can add an aftermarket cooler, overclock it, and you'll be right back up to speed. This processor comes in at about $118, and it's a pretty good start for this build. For the motherboard, we're going with a Gigabyte G8 78LMT USB 3 Micro ATX AM3 Plus socket motherboard. A mouthful. It's a pretty simple motherboard. It's pretty cheap, but it gets a job done. It can be overclocked, so when you want to add an aftermarket cooler later, you can just slap it on and overclock that 6300. It's got USB 3 Plus, it's got plenty of SATA ports, it's Micro ATX, and it does not support SLI or Crossfire. So when you want to upgrade your video cards, you're going to have to buy a whole new one instead of adding another and going with a dual card setup. This motherboard comes in at $50, so it's very cheap, but it still gets the job done. On to the RAM. I chose one stick of 4GB Crucial Ballistic Sports 1600 MHz RAM. I only got 4GB because I went through the decision process, and it's better spending that extra $25 instead of on another 4GB on a video card or CPU. That'll give you more FPS instead of buying another 4GB and having 8GB of RAM. This does mean you're not going to be able to multitask much, but later down the road you can just add another stick of 4GB and you'll have 8GB total. This RAM comes in at $30, so it's pretty cheap, and it lets you spend more money on other parts of the build. For storage, I went with the Seagate Barracuda 500GB 7200 RPM drive. I kind of did something similar to the RAM. I didn't get a terabyte, I only got 500GB. I did this because that $15 that it would take to get a terabyte is better spent on a GPU and CPU. That would give you more FPS, rather than getting a terabyte of space. This drive comes in at about $55, so it's cheaper than a terabyte, still gives you enough storage, and that money can be spent on a GPU or CPU, which will give you more FPS in your games. For the GPU, I chose the EVGA GeForce GTX 760 with ACX cooling. The ACX cooler has 2 fans on it, which will keep it cooler and quieter than stock edition cards. This card comes with a 980 MHz clock speed, so it's pretty fast, but with that ACX cooling, you'll be able to overclock it plenty. This will max out almost all current games. It'll handle next-gen games well, and it'll probably handle next-gen games plenty fine, and you won't have to upgrade this for a while. This GPU comes in at a price point of $250, and it's pretty awesome that we can allocate almost half of our budget to a GPU with this $600 budget. For the case, I went with the Xeon Xeon 560 Micro ATX case. It's a pretty simple case. It comes with LEDs, it comes with, I think, 1 or 2 fans. It actually has pretty good airflow. You got 4 fan mounts on the side, you got front and back fan mounts, and I think you have a few top fan mounts. It's got pretty crude cable management holes, but at least it has holes. A lot of the cases at the lower price points don't even have holes. This one does have some bare bone holes. It'll get the job done. It's a Micro ATX size, so it's pretty small, it's easy transportable, and it only comes in at $40. So it's a good case for the money. Next up is the PSU. I chose a Corsair Builder 430 watt 80 plus bronze certified power supply. Now, I only got 430 watts, so that could be, a lot of people think that would be a problem, but this system will run fine on 430 watts. You'll also have some room to get some solid overclocks in. But if you upgrade to some higher performance parts, you may need to upgrade your power supply to accommodate for the more power draw from these better parts. So there it is, that's my PS4 killer. Features an FX 6300 and a 760, and it's a pretty solid rig for $600. It also has a ton of upgradeability. You can add more RAM, add more storage, add a better video card, better processor, aftermarket cooling and overclock, tons of stuff. It'll handle games just fine for the next 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years, and then you can upgrade easily. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any suggestions for budgets, please put it in the comments, and I'll be sure to get to it in a future video. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and please subscribe for more content.